There are 4 vital elements needed for life. Number 1 is oxygen, number 2 is water, number 3 is sodium, and number 4 is potassium. The last 3 we're going to be looking at later in our series, but today I want to look at oxygen. Let's have a look at the effect of oxygen in the human body. Yesterday, I took you to the cell. I showed you how glucose goes into the cell. Glucose goes into the cell under the action of insulin. Insulin is like the key that unlocks the door to allow glucose into the cell. So glucose comes into the cell, it goes through a 20-step pathway. This 20-step pathway delivers to us 2 units of the big E, energy. The end result of that 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. And pyruvate is the chemical form of glucose that gets fed into the powerhouse. Called the powerhouse because this 8-step pathway delivers to us 36 units of energy. Whoa. And isn't that what everyone wants today? Energy. As I showed you yesterday, this pathway gives us 36 units of energy because it's an aerobic pathway, meaning it uses oxygen. So this is the aerobic pathway. Whereas the 20-step pathway, it's called an anaerobic pathway because it produces energy without oxygen by the process of fermentation. What a difference oxygen makes. The most powerful way to oxygenate the body is exercise. Such an important subject that I'm going to devote another lecture to exercise. But today I want to look at all the other things that influence oxygen going into our body. First of all, let's make a list of the effects of oxygen on the body. Oxygen vitalizes. Oxygen invigorates. And you can see why when you have a look at these pathways. An incredible difference oxygen makes. Oxygen electrifies. That's how you're going to feel when every cell in your body is running on oxygen. Oxygen does something else too. Oxygen soothes the nerves. And we need nerve soothers. If you could put it into a bottle, you'd make a fortune, wouldn't you? And there is a name given for lack of oxygen in the body. It's called chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome has one cause, and that is lack of oxygen. Now, there may be 100 causes for that lack of oxygen, and some of those we're going to have a look at today. So this is what oxygen does, and you can see why when you look at the energy cycles in the cell. 36 units of energy. But what are the symptoms of lack of oxygen? Medicine calls it hypoxia. Hypoxia basically means lack of oxygen. Fatigue. The person feels like they've climbed a mountain and all they've done is got out of bed. Lethargy, can't even get out of bed. Nausea, not the only cause of nausea, but it is one of the symptoms of hypoxia. Headache, not the only causes of a headache, but it is one of the symptoms of hypoxia. The most severe signs of hypoxia are blue top lip, blue fingertip. You see, when blood goes through the lungs, it picks up oxygen like a little parcel, and it gives the blood a bright red colour. So when the person's lacking oxygen, their blood has actually a bluish colour. That's the blue top lip, that's the blue fingertips. I find that many people I meet today are drifting in the haze that lies between optimum health, they're not actually jumping out of their skin with energy, and sickness. They're not actually bedridden, They're in the middle. How many people, when you ask them today, how are you? How many say, all right, not too bad? What does not too bad mean? Not too good? How many people, when you ask them, how are you, say, fantastic? You'd almost go, what's the matter with him? It's sad, isn't it? And age has got nothing to do with this. When I came close to my 50th year, I was shocked at how all my friends were going, oh no, 50. Age has got nothing to do with this. We should feel fantastic every day of our life. And you can see for what I showed you in the cell, one of the reasons is simply lack of oxygen. So let's have a look at the things that influence oxygen going into our body. One is the air that we're breathing. Have you heard of negative ions? Negative ions are electrically charged oxygen molecules. Where do you find negative ions? You'll find negative ions wherever you find moisture, movement, and air. You see, water droplets pass through the air, giving off negative ions. So where do we find water or moisture, movement, and air? The thunderstorm. So negative ions are found, and again, the negative ions is referring to the negative charge. Thunderstorms. You'll also find negative ions. Again, we're looking for moisture, movement, and air. Waterfalls. You'll find negative ions by the sea. So the ocean waves are also creating negative ions. And I think we can all identify the smell in these areas. If we had earplugs in and eye patches on, we would know by the smell of the air. You'll also find negative ions in the pine forest. Negative ions are given off by trees, but the pine is far more. You just think about it, you've got probably 18 little needles of a pine tree compared to the leaf of one other tree. So you've got this massive surface area, and every leaf is always giving off oxygen. Always a little bit of moisture. If you look in the early morning in the bush, you'll see mist rising up out of the gullies, given off from the trees. And you only have to have the slightest breath of wind, and because the pine needles are so light, you'll get a little movement, whereas the other trees are hardly moving at all. That explains why the pine forest has more negative ions in it than other forests. On the other hand, we've got positive ions. Positive ions have more carbon dioxide in their molecule than oxygen. So where do you find the positive ions? You'll find the positive ions before the thunderstorm. And what's the air like before the thunderstorm? Heavy. In fact, we often say to each other, I can feel a storm coming. The air is heavy. And often people can suffer from these symptoms before the thunderstorm. You'll also find positive ions in the city. What have you got in the city? A lot of people, and they're all breathing out carbon dioxide. And some people are smoking. And it gives off another gas, carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide is a dangerous gas for humans because carbon monoxide competes with oxygen on the red blood cell side. I'll show you. So here we have a red blood cell, and when it picks up oxygen, it's an unstable union. It's an unstable union so that it can be dropped again quickly in my toes, in my brain, in my pancreas. Whereas when carbon monoxide is breathed in, it forms a very tight union, inhibiting the uptake of oxygen at that cell. You'll also find carbon monoxide coming out of cars. So car fumes are giving off carbon monoxide. Often when I'm in the city early morning and I see people jogging on the side of the road, I wonder the value of their jog on the side of the road when they're breathing in a lot of carbon monoxide. You'll also find carbon monoxide wherever you find mould. Mould runs very well with no oxygen. It's called an anaerobic organism. And it explains why when someone has a yeast presence in their body, their cells are running up here. Well, not all their cells, of course, but some of their cells are, which is one of the reasons why they lack energy. That's the only energy that they're getting. So one has to be very cautious of any mould in the house or any mould in their work area. And it is one of the reasons for chronic fatigue syndrome. I had a lady come and see me. She was an engineer from Russia. She said to me, I was working in Australia for a couple of years, and then she said, I got chronic fatigue syndrome. That always challenges me because you can't catch this one. So again, I put the detective hat on. I listened to her story first of all. She said, I went to the doctor and I told the doctor that I was living in an apartment on the southern side of the apartment building on the bottom floor. She said, I noticed that my leather shoes and my leather belts would often go mouldy, and there were some cupboards and rooms that often had mould in them. I mentioned this to the doctor, but he didn't seem to take note in what I was saying to him. She said, I had to stop work. I just had no energy. She said, I was battling this for about a year, and I heard of a doctor in Manly, Sydney, who specialises in chronic fatigue syndrome. She said, the first thing he asked me was, where do I live? I explained my house to him, and he said, you cannot go back to that house. He said, you can't even set foot in that house. She looked at him. He said, maybe if you're well covered and you've got masks on and no contact at all with any part of your skin. See, common sense had told her that. You know there's been a death and no one attended the funeral because no one knew he'd died. It was the death of common sense. I'm surprised, well not really, but I am surprised how many people I meet with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I trace their history back and I find contact with mould. Most people are unaware of how dangerous exposure to mould is. You'll also find positive ions coming out of some heaters. Now the heaters that are the most dangerous are the heaters that rob the air of oxygen. Now we have in every house here at Misty Mountain wood fires. You might just see the edge of one just here. It's like a combustion stove. And we love them because it keeps our houses nice and warm. They do rob the air of oxygen, but what we do in the winter, say we have a program starting on Sunday, we light this fire Saturday morning, and you'll notice that our building is big, thick Besser bricks, so by Sunday morning it's toasty warm and we're able to close the vents, so now the heater's not robbing the air of oxygen, and yet that nicely maintains the heat. So if you do have one of these heaters in your home, just be mindful that they do rob the air of oxygen. As soon as you're able, bank it down, meaning close the air vents so the air's not being taken, or the oxygen's not being taken out of the room. Always have a little bit of a window open. Have plants in the room. Plants, especially the wide leaves, are able to purify the air. The best heaters are probably your oil heaters in those columns that are warmed up by electricity. So just be mindful of heaters in the home. You can do much to improve the oxygen content of your body by being mindful of the air that you're breathing. There's one thing else that you can be mindful of that will influence the oxygen uptake in your body, and that is hydration. Let me tell you a story. I gave I did a live blood analysis on a 23-year-old girl one day, and her blood was clumped. Her red blood cells were clumped like that. I always presume I've spoiled the slide. It is very easy to spoil a slide. 5 blood slides later, her blood looked like that. I said to her, have you had any water to drink today? It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She said, I don't drink water. I said, I can tell. I said, I cannot read your blood. It is so clumped. Her mother came in. Her mother was 45. I took her mother's blood and it looked like this. I said to her, your mother is 22 years older than you and she has better blood than you. This girl did not want to be at our health retreat. Mind you, by the end of the first day, she grabbed a book and a pen and started writing. She started to get excited about the information she was hearing, and at the end of the week she said, I wish this was my first day. 10 years later I talked to her mother and her mother said she's married with a little baby and she's applying everything she learned at Misty Mountain. But when I did this blood slide, she was not drinking water, she was not interested. It's amazing the difference that knowledge makes, isn't it? Now, when that blood goes through the lungs, how much oxygen is it picking up compared to when this blood goes through the lungs? Can you see the surface area that has been lost purely because of dehydration? One microbiologist said to me, he said, Barbara, we have done research on this. And he said 1 cup of coffee requires 5 cups of water to accommodate for the dehydrating agents in the coffee. Whoa. How many people having coffee or tea instead of water? How many people do we meet today who are always tired? They may not have exposure to mold. They may not have problems with the heater. They could simply be dehydrated. That's easy fixed, isn't it? Now, the good news is that this girl, if she started drinking water, and the best way to hydrate the body is little by little by little over the day, by the end of the day, I could look at her blood and it could look like this. Dehydration is easy fixed. So, a person can suffer from chronic fatigue syndrome simply because they're dehydrated. Another way that a person can limit the amount of oxygen going into their body is by the way they breathe. Our body was designed so that the abdominal muscles are used in the breathing process. I don't know if you're familiar with Andrea Bocelli. He's a blind Italian opera singer, amazing voice. And I saw a video once of him in concert, and he's standing like this. You see, when you learn to sing, your teacher teaches you how to breathe with your abdominal muscles, because you cannot hold the note, you cannot get the tone. Obviously with Andre, there's a little bit of training there, but sometimes he'll sing a note and you think, how can he go much further? And he'll go up onto a higher note and go a little bit longer. Yes, that is training, but he has trained not only his chest and throat, but mainly his abdominal muscles. So our abdominal muscles must be used in the breathing process. Many times that is not possible because of posture. So hunching like this, it's impossible to use your abdominal muscles. Tight clothes around the waist inhibits the abdominal muscles being able to breathe. So there are some of the things that can influence the oxygen uptake in our blood. Our body was not only designed to use chest, but abdomen. And when someone is just a high chest breather, they can actually be losing out on gaseous exchange at the bottom of the lungs. So be very mindful of the way that you're breathing, because that absolutely can influence the oxygen uptake in your body. And this is why I suggest that everyone do Pilates exercises. When I say Pilates, I mention Pilates because it's well acknowledged that those group of exercises are designed to strengthen the core. And the core of the body is like the hub of a wheel. And your core muscles in your abdomen are all connected to your spine. In fact, you have one muscle called transverse abdominis, and it starts at your spine, connects with your hip and rib on either side, and then back to spine. And when you do core strengthening exercises, which Pilates targets, then when your muscles here are strengthened, it automatically pulls your spine straight. So part of your exercise program, ideally even 5 days a week, should be some core strengthening exercise that will help your spine to be stronger and straighter, and then it will be easier to use your abdominal muscles in the breathing process. Sunshine is law number 2. The sun is not the enemy in the sky, it is the doctor in the sky. And yet how often is it hailed as the enemy? The reason why the sun is so important is because ultraviolet rays from the sun hit the skin and convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin to vitamin D. And vitamin D is being hailed today as the anti-cancer vitamin because of its ability not only to stop cancer cells running, but even convert them back to a normal running cell. That's quite amazing, isn't it? You see, vitamin D not only is hailed as the anti-cancer vitamin, but it is essential for the assimilation of calcium in the body. And calcium has a nickname. He's called the king, because when calcium gets in, all the other minerals are able to get into the cell. And the largest concentration of calcium is found in the bones. We've virtually got 2 epidemics today. We've got many epidemics, but 2 I want to speak about now. One is a vitamin D deficiency. And this is in the land of the sun. And the reason there's so much vitamin D deficiency is, number one, people are not getting the sun exposure. And when people put sunscreens on, that stops, yes, the burning rays, but the burning rays are the healing rays. Michael and I had a holiday a few weeks ago in Fiji. We were the only people laying by the pool that weren't covered in sunscreens, and we didn't get burnt. And by the way, we noted some very burnt bodies. Why didn't we get burnt? Because we would lay in the sun on our back for 15 minutes, on our front for 15 minutes, have a swim, dry off, go back to our room. We did that morning and night, and we came back with quite a nice tan, no sunburn. It's just using your common sense. If you have to be out in the sun for a long time, put a big hat on and just cover your skin. What about sunscreens? What's the problem with sunscreens? Sunscreens contain something like, say, zinc oxide, which is not toxic, but it is brought down to nanoparticles, and nanoparticles are barely measurable. And they do that so that it goes into a cream form and it can be nicely smoothed on the skin. But they're finding these nanoparticles in marine life. And they do not know at this stage whether those nanoparticles can get through the blood-brain barrier. Not a lot is known, but it is suggested that one of the contributing factors for the demise of our Great Barrier Reef is the amount of Aussies that are swimming in the water with sunscreens with these nanoparticles in them. If we're wise with our exposure to sun, we do not need to put sunscreens on. One lady said to me, my little girl's at preschool and they will not let her go outside unless she puts sunscreen on. So my suggestion is to get a little tube of sunscreen and empty it, and then get some aloe vera gel and suck up the aloe vera gel into the sunscreen tube and send that with the child. Isn't it lying? No, it is not lying, because aloe vera has a natural sunscreen in it. It's not going to stop you burning if you're out there for hours. And ideally, when your little one is home, she spends quite a bit of time outside. She develops a nice tan. And that's one of the best protections against sunburn, of course, is a tan. And only little by little can you develop this tan. My daughter in America has 5 children. She never puts sunscreen on them, and by the end of summer, they are golden brown. One of the big contributing factors to skin cancer today is vitamin D deficiency. Research is showing that vitamin D deficiency is contributing to skin cancer. On the DNA of the human body, there are 2,500 receptor sites for vitamin D. We cannot heal without vitamin D. We don't need much sun exposure to get all the vitamin D that we need, but you will not get vitamin D unless your skin has no creams and potions on it at all. But by the way, if you have a shower and wash yourself with soap and then lay in the sun, you will get no vitamin D. There must be that light film of natural oil. And if you lay in the sun and then go and have a shower and wash yourself with soap, washing off all those oils, you will not get vitamin D. It takes approximately 2 hours after sun exposure for the vitamin D to be developed in your skin. Your vitamin D is stored in your kidney, and then as it is needed, it's taken over to the liver, which releases the vitamin D. Notice what I first said. When the ultraviolet rays from the sun hit the skin, they cause a form of cholesterol just under the skin to be converted into vitamin D. Did you notice the word cholesterol? Another reason why we need to be cautious not to have too low cholesterol levels. Is it the amount of people who are on statin drugs, cholesterol-lowering drugs, that is contributing to this vitamin D deficiency? Calcium is stored in the bones, so this is our second epidemic that I'm mentioning in this presentation, which is osteoporosis. Brittle bones. Lack of calcium is the lack of calcium because of the lack of vitamin D. You can have calcium in your food, and yet if you're not getting adequate vitamin D, you cannot access that calcium. So it's very important to get the sunshine so that we've got nice, strong bones. Our eyes need sun. We have a book in our library called Better Eyesight Without Glasses by Dr. William Bates. Every library should have this book. It shows you how you can do some simple little exercises to prevent deterioration of eyesight. He actually says in his book that the eyes can't get enough sun treatment. He says if you go out into the sun and you've been in a dark room and it's a little bit glary, he says close your eyes and then tip your head up to the sun and just stay like that for a few minutes and put your head down and open your eyes, and your eyes will be used to the sun. Never should we look at the sun. The eyes tell you that. He also suggests that sometimes we go outside, lift our eyelid, look down, and let the ultraviolet rays from the sun hit the eyeball, the white of the eye. Obviously only for a minute or two at a time. We don't want burnt eyeballs. So let me very quickly say in the next breath, you can overdo the sun. Absolutely. And Aussies have been guilty of that over the years. When you overdo the sun, you know it because it's very painful. You've burnt the skin. That's what damages the skin. Short bursts of sunshine do not damage the skin. In fact, the body deteriorates when it's not getting those short bursts of sunshine because then it is not getting the vitamin D. Did you know that children suffered and died for 300 years in England before finally in 1921 it was acknowledged that rickets was a vitamin D deficiency? Now, excuse the illustration, I'm not the best drawer, but you'll get what I mean. This is the head, this is the torso. Legs looking like this. I have got a photograph at home in a book called The Healing Sun. It has a photo of children with rickets. I'm not talking about the 18-month-old baby who has a big nappy on and the legs look like that. I'm talking about children 5, 6, 7 years of age. He also showed another in this picture. There were 3 children. This child didn't have rickets. Basically the legs are like this, and the third child also had rickets, but the legs were more like this. The perfect leg is where the ankles and the calves and the knee all touch when the legs are put together. I'm sure you'll be pleased to see me rubbing that off. I'm not the best drawer. But to give you an illustration, did you know that rickets is returning? You go in any shop mall and look at legs and you will see rickets is returning because people are not getting into the sunshine. Now in 1921, when it was finally acknowledged that rickets was a vitamin D deficiency, then women attended classes given by nurses on how to put their babies and their children in the sun. Do they still have those classes? Oh no. One woman told me that she was told not to put her baby in the sun for the first year of life. No, no, no. I know when my babies were little, I used to give them sun kicks. You know, you'd put a little bit of shade from about their chest up and take their nappy off and let them kick in the sun. My babies were as brown as berries. That's a healthy glow. They weren't sunburnt. I was very cautious how little by little I had sun exposure with them. You see, we've almost gone from the one extreme to another extreme. Aussies have been overdoing the sun, now they're underdoing the sun. There's a balance. In the middle, the sun is not the enemy in the sky. It can be overdone. But now, Aussies are underdoing it. So we need that little bit of sun. It was estimated in 1890 that 90% of children living in North London were suffering from rickets. Again, a vitamin D deficiency. Your eyes need sun. About 10 years ago, a group of scientists discovered a receptor site on the eye, on the retina. It was called melanopsin. They gave it the name melanopsin. And melanopsin is an absorber of blue light. And the highest source of blue light is the sunlight. And they found when brains had adequate amount of melanopsin, they were able to solve mathematical problems easier, their tactical reasoning increased, all because of the eye's exposure to the sun. Melanopsin is not involved in sight, and yet it's a receptor site on the retina. You see, our eyes are an extension of our brain. And our brain needs sun. And our brain gets the sun through our eyes. Another reason that we need exposure to eyes for the sake of the brain, and Dr. Neil Nedley found this, he talks about it in his book, Depression: A Way Out. He explains how he found that 80% of depressed people, their circadian rhythm was out. Circadian rhythm, what's circadian rhythm? Circade is Latin for around day. So the circadian rhythm basically is the rhythm of balance in the brain. And it is the night and dark signals that actually bring that balance. And he found 80% of them, their circadian rhythm was out. And his advice to reset the circadian rhythm was to allow the eyes to be exposed to 1 hour of early morning light. He said there is something in that early morning light that when our eyes are exposed to it, it resets the circadian rhythm. Now, doesn't God paint a magnificent picture morning and night? It's almost as if He's done something so that our eyes are drawn to the sun rises and the sun sets. And science now proves the value of this, the value of allowing your eyes to observe the early morning. And the early morning light is the most powerful. A little bit also happens in the setting sun. He said that early morning exposure of the eyes resets the circadian rhythm in the brain. Light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to a control center in the brain where our body clock is located, and our body clock communicates with the pineal gland. And the pineal gland, it helps us sleep at night. The pineal gland releases a hormone called serotonin, and that's why on a sunny day we feel so good, because our pineal gland is being activated by the sun's rays going through the eyes and making us feel better. So it's excellent news for someone who's challenged with depression. And the latest figures are this: 50% of Australians are or will suffer from mental illness, some form of mental illness. They're alarming figures. Is it because Aussies are going to bed too late? Is it because they're not catching that early morning light? Is it because they're not getting enough vitamin D? I don't think it's the only cause, but I think it's definitely a contributing factor in the mental illness that we're seeing. So as you can see by my illustration, we need sun. Our brain needs sun, our eyes need sun, our bones need sun, our skin needs sun. And our bones get our vitamin D from the sun through the skin, and our brain gets the ultraviolet rays through the eyes. So all are important. So the next question I'm often asked is, what about sunglasses? Well, I never say never to sunglasses. If I was going to be snow skiing and we've got white powder, blue sky, strong sun, I'd wear sunglasses because the eyes can burn. And if I was driving in the city with the glare of the other cars, the glare of the cement buildings, I may consider wearing sunglasses. But as a rule, we should not wear sunglasses. If we go out into a very hot sunny day, our eyes are assessing the strength of the sun, the heat of the sun, and it gives a message to our brain. And our brain then shuts up little receptor sites on our skin to prevent us burning too badly. Obviously, overexposure to the sun, nothing's going to prevent burning. But if we go out into the sun and we have sunglasses on, can you see messages are not getting to the brain because of the sunglasses? So a person can burn a lot easier if they've got sunglasses on. Again, I never say never, but our eyes were designed to cope and adjust to the sun. See, we've got amazing eyes. You just have a look at them. They're set in this bony structure, so if anything hits the eye, the bony structure protects it. We've got these eyelashes there that you only have to get a little bit close and the eyelashes start to close. That protects things going into the eye. But not only that, in the eye, it's surrounded with a lot of a mucus, so that if anything does get in, it is trapped in the mucus. But something else is amazing, and that is that anything that touches the eyeball, in the majority of cases, it ricochets off. And this happened recently. My daughter lives in America, and the little boy across the road had a little BB gun. It has little pellets, and he was trying to shoot flies, apparently, and his little sister got in the way. Do you know that little bullet, a little pellet, it went through her eyelid, hit the eyeball and ricocheted back off again, and it came out through the hole that it had made when it went through the eyelid. They of course took it to the doctor and they assessed the eye, they did a lot of tests, and they said, it's a little bruise, she's got to lie down for a few days and she will totally recover. So what an amazing eye we have. It's a very important part of the body, and people don't realise that it is connected to the brain, and the brain gets many substances, messages, and absolutely ultraviolet rays are important for proper brain function, and they come in through the eyes. That's why if you wear glasses, you should spend some time every day not wearing your glasses. Again, I never suggest you look at the sun, but just being outside, the ultraviolet rays from the sun are going in through the eyes and giving messages of many sorts to the brain. When you get those messages through the eyes to the brain, you sleep better at night. Not only do you sleep better at night, but you also have better brain function in many areas, as I have just touched, but very important that the eyes have rest. When do the eyes rest? Well, in our next lecture, I'm going to show you that the eyes must rest between certain hours in the night. We've got daylight saving at the moment, so those hours are between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. every night. One of the many reasons eyes are deteriorating today is because they're not getting the proper rest. We need to be closing our eyes and going to sleep every night. And there is a price to pay for our eyes experiencing flashing lights, moving things at a time when they should be sleeping. It's quite alarming how many people are wearing glasses today, isn't it? And it's very alarming how many children are wearing glasses. I mentioned eyes being exposed or overexposed to small screens. A friend of mine went to see an eye doctor, this is about 15 years ago, and he was about 90 then, so maybe he's not with us. But he said something to her. She was complaining about her lack of eyesight. He said, "We need to spend more time gazing at the mountains." I love that saying. We need to spend more time gazing at the mountains. So if you have a job where you're at the computer a lot, very important if even hourly you go outside and gaze at the mountains and you say, "Barbara, all I've got is high-rise." Well, gaze at the clouds. But get those eyes balanced in the amount of short things they're looking at and the amount of wide things they're looking at. It's reviving to stand outside and gaze in the distance. If there are no trees, if there's no water, if there's no sea, then maybe it's the clouds. Just watch the movement of the clouds. And of course, all through life, there is always movement. The eyes need exercise. So exercising the eyes means gazing at the mountains. And forgive me as I give this maybe silly illustration of how you can strengthen your eyes. So you turn one way on one foot and you focus on one point. And then you turn another way and you focus on another point, standing on one leg. Blur, 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 gazing focus, blur, 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 gazing focus. This is one of the exercises that Dr. William Bates gives you in his book, Better Eyesight Without Glasses. So a very simple exercise. And another thing I advise is not wearing the glasses a lot. I do have glasses. They're only a 1.550 magnification, and I use them when I'm reading small print, maybe in the morning or at night. But ideally, if I have small print I want to read, I'll go to the sun or I'll get a light and target it on there. And in that way, you can strengthen your eyes. Dr. William Bates says in his books, the only time our eyes really start to get weary and deteriorate is eye strain when you're tired. And this explains what I said to you previously. The eyes are extension of the brain. So when the brain is weary, when the brain is tired, and you press and push the eyes and strain them, that's what wearies the eyes. Eye strain when you are not tired. Eye strain when your brain has been well slept and your eyes well slept, then your eyes are strengthened. So they're simple things to remember. Yes, I have my glasses in my bag if I need them, but I will always go to the sunshine because sunshine straight on small print, you can see it quite well. And the most important information on many products is in the small print, isn't it? You can't see it. I was in the supermarket one day and there was a lady in the aisle and she had a wire around her neck and the biggest magnifying glass I'd ever seen. And she was reading all the small print. It's like on, you know, your V drinks, your energy drinks, Red Bulls, Mother. In the small print it says that one should not drink more than 2 in a 24-hour period, but most people that drink it don't even know that because you can't even see it because you can't read it. So eyes can be strengthened and eyes can be weakened. Remember, they need to sleep at night. They also need to be exercised, and you can exercise it by the little simple one I just gave you, but also gazing at the big things, gazing wide at the mountains. Get the children to count how many clouds, how many birds they see, but get those eyes going around. But also the eyes need you to be well hydrated, as the brain needs well hydration, and we're going to be looking at that in more detail later. Your bones need hydration, your skin needs hydration. Not only do you need the good fats, and you need to make sure that your cholesterol levels are nice and high to access your vitamin D, but your skin dries out and you don't have that moisture in the skin that the sun needs to convert, or to touch that cholesterol to convert it to vitamin D. Water loss in a day is basically this. Via the kidneys, we have a 1.5 litre loss. I think on a day like today, where it's been very hot under these hot lights, I think I'm drinking easily 3 litres of water a day. Your skin has approximately a 0.5 of a litre loss. Via your colon, approximately a 0.3 of a litre loss. And via your lungs, there is approximately a 0.2 of a litre loss. That's a 2.5 litre loss in a 24-hour period. Again, that can greatly change. On a very hot day, it changes. We need to be taking at least 2 litres of water a day for proper eye function, for proper brain function, for proper bone function, and for proper skin function. The other half a litre can come in via herb teas, can come in via maybe the fruits that you're eating, maybe the salads that you're eating. So the water is essential. In a later lecture, I will be defining that in a little bit more detail. So let's make a list here of the essentials. Number 1 is pure air, sunshine. We've got that. Not taking anything into the body that will harm it. We'll be looking at our next lecture. Rest. And not only do our eyes need rest at night between the hours at the moment of 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., but your eyes also need rest through the day by alternating. Alternating looking at small screens and writing and printing, and alternating looking at the mountains. And by the way, if we had a choice of which we would spend more time on, obviously it would be the mountains, gazing out and looking at that. And what that does is that gives the muscle balance in your eyes, it gives them the proper balance. Also, water is necessary for proper eye, for proper bone, and for proper brain function. At least 2 litres a day. And number 3, exercise. These things are not often addressed, are they, when looking at proper eye function? Exercise, in-body exercise. And the reason why body exercise is important, that means the whole body exercising, is because it increases the circulation of the blood everywhere in the body, and particularly now we're looking at eyes and brain. And that increases blood supply to the eyes. But also, we need to specify eye exercises in the ones that I just mentioned to you. So they are vital for the proper functioning of the eyes, and this whole lecture is about sun exposure. One man told me that his specialist told him to keep his eyes out of the sun. It's a pity that people have overdone the sun and given the sun a bad name, but the sun, as you can see by what you've heard this morning, is actually the doctor in the sky. Your eyes need it, your brains need it, brain needs it, your skin needs it, and your eyes need sunshine. The other thing that eyes need and brain needs and skin needs is nutrition. Every cell in the body has these cycles running through it. The only cell in the body that does not have those energy cycles running through it is the red blood cell. And the red blood cell doesn't have a nucleus. The red blood cell is made in your bones. The blood is often called the river of life. The Bible calls the blood the life of the flesh, because every part of your body is only alive because of blood going through it. And the reason it's called the life is because it carries the oxygen, and as you can see, the cells cannot run effectively without oxygen. It carries the nutrition, it carries the white blood cells, and as it goes out of that area, it takes the waste away with it. And yesterday we looked at the disposal units of the body, or the waste parts of the body where the waste are eliminated. So the blood is important because it's the carrier of this. So what's proper nutrition? We'll be looking at this in a little bit more detail, but we touched on it yesterday. High fibre. And the highest fibre foods are your vegetables, and your vegetables contain the minerals. And the minerals basically are the glue that glues us together. They're your healers. High fibre, great proteins. And yesterday we defined the proteins in the vegetarian protein. We looked at Genesis 1:29, where God says, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed." We looked at legume, we looked at grain, and we looked at the seed, and we also looked at the nut. The last part of that verse, God says, "The seed, to you it shall be for meat." In other words, the seed is like the chicken's egg. It contains all the nutrients required for the running and the healing of the body, and healthy fats. And this afternoon we're going to be defining the healthy fats. There are fats that harm and there are fats that kill, and because there are killer fats, fats have got a bad name. And because the sun can burn, the sun has got a bad name. So what we need to look at here is a balance. So the nutrition is vital, the healthy fats are vital, so you've got nice amounts of cholesterol just under the skin so that the vitamin D can be made. The protein is important because our eye cells, as I mentioned the other day, are constantly being remade. In fact, every 1 to 2 days, new eye cells are made. But they have to have the nutrition to be able to be made effectively. And the new eye cells are built up by amino acids. And the amino acids comes from the protein that we eat. Now, some people are a little bit uncertain as to the link between protein and amino acids. So I'll show you. This is protein. Protein is all these bonds linked together. That's what protein looks like in a very simple way. Then it comes into our stomach, and the pepsinogen, this is the enzyme that breaks down them, and it breaks them down into smaller bonds. So that one's called a peptide, and this one's called a polypeptide. And then those substances get down into the small intestine, where trypsin and chymotrypsins further break it down. They will break these peptides down to amino acids. And they'll break this one here down to an amino acid and maybe a peptide. And then further down, they also come down to amino acids. So these are your amino acids. They're very simply the breakdown from the protein that we eat. And it's those amino acids that are taken into the gut, taken into the blood, up to the liver, and the liver has the ability to start putting those amino acids together in different shapes to start building us up again. And the healthy fats. We don't need much fat, but we need a little bit of fat. These are the nutrients required for proper skin function, proper bones function, proper eye function, and proper brain function. This is an amazing body with an amazing ability to heal itself, and it will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. And the aim of this group of lectures is to give you the information that you need to give the body so that our eyes see better, our brain works better, our pancreas works better, our liver works better, our lungs, our skin, every part of our body.